The rusty metal creaked under Jack Miller's boots as he made his way through the sprawling space junkyard. Countless derelict ships floated in neat rows, held in place by aging magnetic tethers. The distant star cast long shadows across their broken hulls, creating an endless maze of light and darkness. This was Jack's domain, the place where forgotten vessels came to die. He checked his tablet again, confirming the coordinates of his next salvage target. The station needed specific parts for their life support systems, and Jack was the best at finding what others missed. That's why they kept him around, even though many of the alien mechanics looked down on his primitive human methods. The magnetic boots carried him forward with practiced steps. His oxygen meter showed 4 hours of breathing time left, more than enough for this routine salvage run. At least, that's what he thought until his headlamp caught something unusual. There, between two crushed cargo haulers, floated a ship unlike anything he'd seen before. Its hull was dark, almost black, with strange angles that seemed to drink in the light. Despite the obvious age and damage, something about it made Jack's hair stand on end. "Control, are you seeing this?" he asked over the radio, adjusting his helmet camera. Static crackled before a bored voice responded. "Just another piece of junk, Miller. Stick to your assigned sector." But Jack couldn't look away. 20 years of working with machines had taught him to trust his instincts, and everything about this ship screamed that it was special. He magnetic walked closer, his headlamp revealing more details. The hull wasn't rusty like the others. It was covered in some kind of crystalline growth that had formed over what looked like incredibly smooth metal underneath. Pulling out his scanner, Jack swept it across the ship's surface. The readings made no sense. According to the device, parts of the hull weren't even there, while others showed energy signatures that shouldn't be possible in a dead ship. "Come on, old girl," he muttered, pulling out his toolkit. "Let's see what you're hiding." It took him 30 minutes to find what might be an access panel. The crystalline growth was thick here, but Jack had learned long ago that every ship had a way in. You just had to think like its builders. He attached a small cutting tool to the surface and started carefully removing the crystal layer. The panel underneath was smooth and warm to the touch, despite the freezing vacuum of space. As Jack's gloved fingers brushed against it, lines of soft blue light suddenly pulsed outward from his hand. He jerked back, heart pounding, but nothing else happened. "Control, I'm seeing some unusual activity here, requesting permission to investigate further." "Negative, Miller. Return to your assigned salvage. We're not paying you to explore." Jack looked at his tablet, then back at the mysterious ship. In 20 years, he'd never disobeyed a direct order. But he also hadn't survived this long by ignoring his instincts. "Sorry. Control. Breaking up. Can't hear you." He deliberately rubbed his radio against his suit, creating static. "Will report when signal clears." The blue lines were spreading now, creating intricate patterns across the hull. Jack recognized them as circuit pathways, but they were more complex than any he'd ever seen. This ship wasn't dead. It was dormant, waiting for something, or someone. With trembling fingers, he reached into his toolkit and pulled out his most reliable tool, a simple mechanical multimeter that had never failed him. Sometimes the old ways were best, especially when dealing with unknown technology. As he touched the probes to the glowing circuit paths, the ship shuddered. Deep within its hull, something ancient stirred to life. Jack Miller, a simple human mechanic, had just stumbled upon the discovery of a lifetime. He didn't know it yet, but this forgotten vessel was about to change everything. Not just for him, but for the entire galaxy. The station manager's office felt too small for the crowd that had gathered. Jack stood in the center, still wearing his work suit minus the helmet, while 5 senior engineers and the station's head of salvage operations stared at him with a mixture of disbelief and annoyance. "Let me get this straight," Manager Rogers said, tapping his fingers on the desk. "You want us to delay scrapping a valuable piece of salvage because you have a feeling about it." The alien engineers whispered among themselves. One of them, A tall figure with metallic skin stepped forward. The human's request is illogical. Our scans show the vessel is worthless except for basic materials. Jack pulled out his tablet, his hand still dirty from the 6 hours he'd spent examining the ship. Your scans are wrong. Look at these energy readings. That ship isn't dead. It's sleeping. Sleeping? Rogers laughed. Ships don't sleep, Miller. They work or they don't. And this one clearly doesn't. But Jack wasn't backing down. He'd spent 20 years being ignored by proper engineers, watching them waste good machinery because they couldn't see past their sophisticated tools. Give me 6 months. That's all I'm asking. The metallic-skinned engineer made a sound like grinding gears. 6 months of dock space. Do you know how much that costs? I'll pay for it myself, Jack said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. Every credit I've saved. And I'll work on my own time, between regular salvage runs. The room went quiet. Even Rogers looked surprised. Station workers didn't bet their savings, not when living in space ate through credits faster than a hull breach ate through air. And what do we get if you're wrong? Rogers asked, leaning forward. I'll resign. No severance, no questions asked. Jack met the manager's eyes. But if I'm right, if I can get that ship working, it becomes a joint project. The station gets 70% of any profits or patents. The alien engineers burst into laughter. One of them actually fell over, their environmental suit wheezing with amusement. A human, reviving ancient technology. With primitive tools. Rogers held up his hand, silencing them. He studied Jack for a long moment. You've never asked for anything like this before, Miller. 20 years, always followed orders, always got the job done. Why risk everything now? Jack thought about the warm metal under his gloves, the mysterious circuits that had responded to his touch. Because that ship chose me. I know how that sounds, but I've worked with machines my whole life. This one's different. Special. Superstitious nonsense. The metallic engineer scoffed. Manager Rogers, let us dismantle it. Our automated systems can have it processed in days. Rogers drummed his fingers on the desk for what felt like hours. Finally, he nodded. 6 months, Miller, not a day more. And you keep up with your regular duties. This pet project doesn't interfere with station operations. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. Oh, and Miller. Rogers called as Jack turned to leave. When this fails, and it will fail, I expect your resignation on my desk immediately. Jack nodded and walked out, ignoring the snickers from the engineers. He had work to do. The ship was waiting, and somehow he knew it had secrets that would prove them all wrong. His hands might be human, his tools might be simple, but there was one thing all those alien engineers had forgotten. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and no race in the galaxy was better at fixing broken things than humans. As he made his way back to the salvage deck, his mind was already racing with plans. 6 months wasn't much time, but it would have to be enough. The ship had chosen him for a reason, and Jack Miller wasn't about to let it down. 2 months had passed, and Jack's hands were bleeding again. The ship's internal passages were tight, filled with sharp edges that cut through even the toughest work gloves. But he kept going, pushing deeper into the vessel's mysterious heart. The soft blue glow of the ship's circuits provided the only light besides his headlamp. He'd discovered that the crystalline growth wasn't damage at all. It was some kind of protective cocoon the ship had made around itself. Every piece he carefully removed revealed more of the incredible technology beneath. Just a little further, he muttered, squeezing through another narrow gap. His scanner had detected something different ahead, a chamber larger than any he'd found so far. The readings suggested it might be the ship's control center, or maybe its engine room. The passage suddenly widened, opening into a circular room. Jack's headlamp swept across walls covered in dormant circuits and strange, smooth panels, but it was the object in the center that made him freeze. A pillar of dark crystal rose from the floor to the ceiling, shot through with threads of blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Jack approached it slowly, his scanner going crazy with readings he'd never seen before. "What are you?" he whispered, reaching out to touch the crystal. The moment his fingers made contact, the entire room hummed to life. Lines of light raced across every surface, and a voice spoke directly into his mind. "Project Guardian active. Unknown entity detected. Analyzing." Jack stumbled back, his heart racing. "Hello? Can you understand me?" There was a pause, filled with strange clicking sounds. Language analysis complete. English. Earth origin. Human biological patterns detected. Interesting. You are not the builders. "No," Jack said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I found your ship in a salvage yard. I've been trying to repair it." Another pause. Accessing repair logs. Primitive tools detected. Unorthodox methods employed. Yet, effective. Success rate exceeds projected possibilities for non-builder species. Jack smiled despite his fear. Even an ancient AI thought his methods were primitive. Sometimes the simple way is the best way. "I'm Jack, by the way. Jack Miller. Designation accepted. You may call me Guardian. You have questions." It wasn't a question. Jack had hundreds of them, but he started with the most important. "Why were you sleeping? What happened to your builders?" The crystal pulsed darker for a moment. "War happened. The builders faced an enemy they could not defeat. I was their final weapon, but I was incomplete. They hid me away, hoping someone would find me who could finish what they started." "And you think I can do that?" Jack asked, looking at his scarred hands. "I'm just a mechanic." "You are human," Guardian replied. "Your species possesses something unique. You see patterns where others see chaos. You find solutions where others see only problems. Your repair methods should not work, yet they do. The builders believed their salvation would come from a race that could think differently. Perhaps they were correct." The lights in the room grew brighter, and Jack felt the ship coming alive around him. Panels that had been dark for months lit up with data streams and diagrams. "I have reviewed your modifications," Guardian continued. "They are unexpected, creative. They have already altered my base systems in ways the builders never conceived. Will you help me complete my transformation, Jack Miller?" Jack looked around the room, at the marriage of his simple repairs and the ship's incredible technology. He thought about the station engineers who laughed at his methods, and about all the broken things he brought back to life over the years. "Yes," he said firmly, "but you have to tell me everything. What were you designed to fight? What's the real purpose of all this technology?" The crystal pulsed once more, and Guardian's answer sent chills down Jack's spine. "The enemy still exists, Jack Miller, and they are awakening again." Jack stared at the engine core in disbelief. The old power system he'd rigged up using spare parts from 3 different ships wasn't just working. It was getting stronger. Guardian's crystal chamber pulsed with energy as the AI analyzed the changes. "Your solution is unorthodox," Guardian said in Jack's mind. "Using magnetic bottle technology from a mining ship to contain the energy flow should not be compatible with my systems. Yet it has increased power output by 300%. Jack wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of grease. Sometimes you have to stop thinking about what should work and focus on what does work. Human engineering isn't about perfect solutions. It's about making things work with what you have." The ship shuddered as another system came online. Over the past week, more and more of the vessel had begun to wake up. Parts that Jack had repaired with simple mechanical fixes were somehow upgrading themselves, combining his rough repairs with the ship's advanced technology in ways that defied explanation. "Warning," Guardian announced. "External scan detected. Station sensors are analyzing our power signature." Jack cursed under his breath. He'd hoped to keep the ship's revival secret for longer, but there was no hiding the energy readings now. "Can they see what we're doing?" "Negative. The crystalline shell is adapting to your repairs, creating a new kind of stealth system. Most scans will show only background radiation. However, the power spike was briefly visible." As if on cue, Jack's radio crackled. "Miller, this is Control. We're picking up some unusual readings from your sector. Report status immediately." Jack grabbed his radio. "Everything's fine. Control. Just testing some salvaged power cells. Readings should settle down soon." There was a long pause before Control responded. "The alien engineering team is requesting to inspect your project. They're concerned about safety protocols. Tell them I'll file a full report tomorrow," Jack said quickly. "I'm in the middle of a delicate procedure right now." The radio went silent, but Jack knew he was running out of time. He turned back to the engine core. "Guardian, we need to speed things up. How much more can we do before someone forces their way in here?" The AI was quiet for a moment, processing. "Your last modification unlocked previously dormant systems. The ship is evolving. Combining your human innovations with my original design is creating something new, something unprecedented." As if to prove Guardian's point, the walls around them began to shift. The metal itself seemed to flow like water, incorporating the spare parts Jack had welded on into its structure. Where there had been rough patches and obvious repairs, now there was smooth, seamless hull that seemed to drink in the light. "That's impossible," Jack whispered, watching his simple fixes transform into something extraordinary. "Metal doesn't just change shape on its own. The builders designed this vessel to adapt and evolve, but they could not predict how. Your human methods, your way of solving problems, they have given the ship a new pattern to follow. We are becoming something that has never existed before." Jack walked over to a viewport he'd repaired with a simple sheet of transparent aluminum. The material was changing before his eyes, becoming something that wasn't quite solid and wasn't quite energy. Through it, he could see his reflection, but he could also somehow see the space beyond the hull, as if the wall wasn't even there. "How much longer until the ship is ready?" he asked, unable to look away from the mesmerizing transformation. Guardian's response held something that sounded almost like concern. "We may not have much time. Long-range sensors are detecting movement at the edge of known space. The enemy I was built to fight. They are returning sooner than expected." The ship trembled again as another system evolved, and Jack realized that his 6 months might already be up. He just hoped that whatever he and Guardian were creating would be ready in time. The station's emergency alarms woke Jack from his short nap inside the ship. He'd been working for 20 hours straight when exhaustion finally caught up with him. Now, red warning lights flashed through the viewport, and Guardian's presence filled his mind with urgent data. "Multiple unknown vessels have entered the system," the AI reported. "Energy signatures match historical records of the enemy fleet." Jack stumbled to the control room, his tired muscles protesting. "Show me." The walls shifted, becoming transparent, giving him a clear view of space. Far in the distance, dark shapes moved against the stars. They looked like massive black thorns, their surfaces absorbing all light that touched them. "Station control to all personnel." A panicked voice came over the radio. "Multiple hostile ships detected. This is not a drill. All civilians proceed to emergency shelters immediately." "Guardian, what are we looking at?" Jack asked, watching more ships appear from the darkness. "The Devourers," Guardian replied. "They consume everything in their path. Planets, stars, all forms of energy. The builders created me to stop them, but they arrived before I was complete. The station's defense turrets powered up, their energy weapons charging. A small fleet of security ships moved into defensive positions. To Jack, they looked like toys compared to the massive shapes approaching the station. "Warning," Guardian announced. "Enemy vessels are powering weapons. Standard defenses will be ineffective. The station's shields will fail in approximately 3 minutes." Jack's hands clenched into fists. "Can we fight them? Is the ship ready?" "Transformation is at 78%. Your modifications have greatly accelerated the process, but full combat capabilities are not yet online." The first enemy ship fired. A beam of absolute darkness struck the station's shields, making them flare bright blue before starting to crack. The security ships opened fire, but their weapons seemed to vanish into the black hulls without effect. Station shields at 40%, Guardian reported. Enemy weapons are designed to drain energy. They will consume the station's power core if they breach the defenses. Jack watched another security ship explode, its crew barely having time to eject. His mind raced through possibilities, thinking like the mechanic he was. Guardian, you said they absorb energy, right? All kinds of energy. Correct. It is their primary means of attack and defense. Then what happens if they absorb too much? Everything has limits. Even black holes can't absorb energy forever without consequences. The eye was quiet for a moment. Processing. Your human perspective offers an interesting possibility. The ship's power core, combined with your unorthodox modifications, yes, we could create an energy overflow in their absorption systems. Will it work? Jack asked as another blast shook the station. Unknown. This strategy was never attempted by the builders, but your previous repairs have already exceeded theoretical limitations. Station shields now at 20%. Jack took a deep breath. Sometimes you have to risk breaking something to fix it. Power up everything we've got. Routed all through that magnetic bottle system we rigged up. The ship came alive around him, circuits glowing brighter than ever. The crystalline growths that covered the hull began to pulse with building energy. Jack could feel the power humming through the deck plates, through his own bones. Station shields failing, Guardian announced. Enemy vessels moving into terminal attack positions, power levels exceeding safe limits. Through the transparent walls, Jack watched the nearest enemy ship turn toward them, its weapon ports opening like hungry mouths. Years of fixing broken things had taught him that sometimes the best solution was the simplest one. Guardian, he said firmly, let's show them what happens when they try to eat more than they can swallow. Power surged through the ship's systems as Jack worked furiously at the controls. His simple repairs had evolved into something extraordinary. The metal under his hands felt warm and alive, responding to his touch like a living thing. Energy levels at maximum capacity, Guardian announced. Warning. Containment systems are stretching beyond designed limits. The enemy vessel loomed closer, its black surface seeming to pull in all nearby light. The station's last shields flickered and died, leaving nothing between the civilians and the Devourers' weapons. Now or never, Jack muttered. Guardian, remember how we fixed that broken power coupling last week? The one everyone said would explode. Affirmative. You reversed the power flow, using the feedback to strengthen the connection rather than destroy it. Let's do the same thing here, but bigger. The ship shuddered as Jack's commands raced through its circuits. The crystalline growths that covered the hull began to glow brighter and brighter, changing from blue to white-hot brilliance. Alert, Guardian said. Ship transformation accelerating. Your actions are triggering the final evolution sequence. The walls around Jack began to shift and flow like liquid metal. The simple repairs he'd made with spare parts and determination were changing, becoming something that wasn't quite technology and wasn't quite alive. Through the transparent sections of hull, he could see the same changes happening outside. The entire ship was transforming. What's happening? Jack asked, watching in awe as new systems appeared and integrated themselves seamlessly into the ship's structure. The builders designed this vessel to be the ultimate adaptation engine, Guardian explained, but they could not complete it. Your human creativity, your ability to see solutions where others see only problems, you have shown the ship new ways to evolve. We are becoming what we were meant to be. The enemy ship fired, its dark energy beam reaching for the station. But before it could hit, Jack's transformed vessel moved into its path. Instead of absorbing the energy or reflecting it, the ship's crystalline hull seemed to catch it, like water flowing into a cup. Power absorption at 200% of maximum, Guardian reported. 300%, 500%. The enemy weapon cannot fill our new energy capacity. Jack grinned as understanding dawned. They're used to their victims struggling against the drain. But we're not fighting it. We're taking it all in. Just like that magnetic bottle system we built. No one ever tried just accepting the power before. The enemy vessel's weapon beam flickered and died. Through the viewport, Jack could see confusion in its movements as it tried to understand what was happening. Ship transformation complete, Guardian announced, and there was something like wonder in its artificial voice. We are now beyond the builder's original designs. Your human modifications have created something unprecedented. Jack looked around the control room in amazement. The walls had become a shifting pattern of crystal and living metal, pulsing with more power than he'd ever seen. Every repair he'd made, every improvised solution, had been absorbed and improved by the ship's evolution. Final power levels exceeding measurable limits, Guardian said. The enemy vessel's energy weapon has made us stronger than they could possibly imagine. Shall we show them what we've become? Through their mental link, Guardian showed Jack what the ship now looked like from the outside. It was beautiful and terrifying. A perfect fusion of crystalline angles and flowing metal, glowing with captured energy. His simple repairs had helped create something that had never existed before in the galaxy. The station's clear, Jack said, looking at the readings. Time to show these Devourers that sometimes the best way to beat a bully is to take their punch and hit back harder. The ship responded to his thoughts, power building in systems that were no longer merely mechanical or electronic, but something entirely new, something born from the combination of ancient alien wisdom and human ingenuity. The transformed ship moved through space like a shooting star, its crystalline hull blazing with stored energy. Jack stood at the controls, his hands resting on panels that felt alive under his touch. The enemy fleet spread out before him, dozens of black ships that seemed to eat the starlight around them. Multiple hostile vessels targeting our position, Guardian reported. They are coordinating their attack. Jack nodded, watching the dark ships move into position. They still think we're just another victim. Let's change their minds. The Devourers attacked as one, their energy-draining weapons reaching out like black lightning. But instead of trying to dodge, Jack's ship flew straight into the center of their formation. The dark beams struck the crystalline hull and were absorbed, making the ship glow even brighter. Power levels continuing to rise, Guardian announced. Enemy weapons are feeding directly into our improved storage systems. Through the mental link, Jack could feel the ship's new systems working exactly as he'd hoped. All those months of fixing things with whatever he had on hand had taught the ship how to adapt, how to turn weaknesses into strengths. The Devourers' greatest weapon was becoming their undoing. They're starting to realize something's wrong, Jack said, watching the enemy ships break formation. Time to show them what we can do with all this borrowed energy. The ship responded to his thoughts, channels of power flowing through the systems he'd helped create. The crystal hull pulsed once, twice, and then released a wave of pure energy that rippled out in all directions. Where it touched the enemy vessels, their light-absorbing surfaces began to crack. Incredible, Guardian said. The energy wave is overloading their absorption systems. They cannot process this much power at once. One of the smaller Devourer ships exploded in a flash of darkness and light. Then another. The larger vessels tried to retreat, but Jack's ship was faster now, chasing them down and forcing more energy into their failing systems. Station control to unknown vessel. His radio crackled. What are we seeing out there? Jack smiled as he watched another enemy ship break apart. Just a mechanic fixing a problem. Control. Sometimes you need to overload a broken system to make it work right again. The remaining Devourers turned to flee, their black hulls now cracked and leaking energy. But before they could escape, Jack's ship released one final pulse of power. The wave caught them all, overloading their systems completely. In seconds, the mighty Devourer fleet was reduced to drifting debris. Enemy threat neutralized, Guardian reported. Station is safe, but there will be more. The Devourers never stop hunting. Jack looked at his hands, scared from months of hard work. Then we'll be ready for them. We'll keep improving, keep adapting. That's what humans do best. The ship turned back toward the station, its crystal hull now soft blue again. Through the viewport, Jack could see people gathering at every window, watching in awe. The alien engineers who had mocked his primitive methods were among them, their expressions unreadable. "You have accomplished what the builders could not," Guardian said. "They sought to create the perfect weapon. Instead, you have created something greater, a ship that can evolve, that can turn an enemy's strength against them." "All I did was fix what was broken," Jack replied modestly, "using whatever worked, not whatever was supposed to work. Perhaps that is why you succeeded where they failed. The builders sought perfection, but you sought solutions." As they docked with the station, Jack thought about all the broken machines he'd fixed over the years, all the times people had told him his methods wouldn't work. Sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. Sometimes you had to stop thinking about the right way to do things and just do what worked. And now, thanks to one human mechanic's simple approach to fixing things, the galaxy had a new defender. One that would keep evolving, keep adapting, ready to face whatever threats came next.